Welcome to Daily English Stories. Every story hides a world. Some inspire, some haunt, some stay forever. Chapter 1. A Heart Ready to Heal. Aisha sat by her bedroom window one quiet morning, the golden sunlight spilling across her desk, warming her hands as they rested on a half-finished sketch. Her journal lay open beside her, filled with thoughts she had poured out late into the night, dreams of healing, whispers of strength, and tiny fragments of hope that she clung to after years of carrying silent wounds. Though the pain of her past still echoed inside her, something in her heart stirred, a quiet voice reminding her that she was not broken beyond repair. She was simply waiting for the right moment to begin again. For too long, Aisha had let self-doubt shadow her steps. She kept her laughter guarded, her words measured, her ambitions tucked away like precious fabrics stored in a chest, too afraid they would wrinkle if touched. But that morning, as the light kissed her face, she realized that healing was not about forgetting. It was about choosing to move forward, even if the road was uncertain. And so, she promised herself, she would take small steps, one at a time, toward the life she longed to live. Her first step was simple, caring for herself in ways she had often neglected. She began with small rituals, making her bed neatly each morning, preparing a cup of tea with ginger and honey, and writing down 3 things she was grateful for. At first, these felt almost trivial, but soon they became anchors in her day, gentle reminders that she deserved kindness, even from herself. Slowly, she dared to reach outward too. One evening, she walked into a local art class. She hadn't touched a canvas in years, yet the scent of paint and the sight of brushes lined neatly in jars stirred something deep inside her. Her hand trembled as she picked up the brush, but as she swept colours across the canvas, she felt a part of her awaken. Each stroke was messy, imperfect, but alive, and with every splash of colour, she remembered that her creativity was not lost. It had only been sleeping. As weeks passed, her confidence grew. She joined a community group that organised small hikes, nervous at first about meeting strangers. But the fresh mountain air filled her lungs, and the sound of laughter around the campfire soothed her fears. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of belonging. People began to notice her warm smile, the way her eyes lit up when she shared stories, and she realized that she was not invisible. She had always been worthy of being seen. Of course, there were days when the shadows tried to creep back. Memories returned, heavy and uninvited, and doubts whispered cruelly in her ear. But this time, Aisha was not the same woman who had once allowed them to consume her. She breathed through the storm, wrote her feelings down, reached for her paintbrush, and reminded herself that healing was not a straight path. It was a winding journey. One late afternoon, as she sat sketching in the park, an elderly woman stopped to admire her work. "You have a gift, my dear," she said softly, her eyes kind and knowing. Aisha felt her throat tighten as gratitude washed over her. She had waited so long for validation, for someone to tell her that her passion mattered. And in that small exchange, she realized something important. Her healing was not just about surviving, it was about reclaiming joy, piece by piece, through connections, creativity, and courage. That night, she closed her journal with a quiet smile. She had filled the page with dreams, not of who she used to be, but of who she was becoming. She no longer feared the journey. For the first time, she looked at the road ahead and whispered, "I'm ready." And though she did not yet know the twists her story would take, Aisha felt a strength within her rising, guiding her toward a future filled with hope, love, and endless possibilities. Chapter 2. Meeting Someone Special. The more days Adeel spent in Greece, the more he felt the country slowly weaving itself into his heart. What had started as a trip meant for distraction was becoming something more, something alive with meaning. The streets greeted him each morning with their narrow cobblestones, bathed in sunlight that seemed warmer than anywhere he had ever been. The air carried the scent of roasted olives, grilled seafood, and sweet pastries dusted with sugar. Music drifted from cafes, where people gathered with laughter that felt unguarded, as though joy was simply a way of life here. It wasn't just the beauty of the place, though it was undeniable. It was the way strangers smiled at him, as if they had known him forever. The way shopkeepers offered samples of cheese with a friendly pat on the back. The way the city itself invited him to slow down and simply be. Greece was not only a place he was visiting, it was beginning to feel like a part of him. And then, in the midst of this growing affection for a country he barely knew, something happened that would make his heart beat differently forever. It was in a small, family-owned cafe, tucked away on a quiet street where flowers draped from balconies above and the hum of life felt softer. Adeel had gone in, drawn by the smell of fresh bread. She was there, Sophia, a woman with kind, thoughtful eyes and hair the colour of chestnut, loosely tied back as she served customers with a grace that seemed effortless. Their eyes met briefly, and Adeel felt a spark he could not name. He ordered coffee, though the taste hardly mattered. What mattered was the way she spoke to him. Her voice was gentle yet strong, carrying a rhythm that made even simple words sound like music. She noticed his accent, asked where he was from, and soon their conversation slipped into laughter. It was easy, natural, like they had been waiting to meet all along. Over the next days, they found excuses to see each other again. Sometimes it was over coffee, sometimes while walking along the harbour, watching the sun melt into the horizon. They talked about everything: her love for the sea, his passion for design, their childhood stories, their dreams for the future. Sophia showed him corners of the city he might have missed. A hidden bookshop filled with dusty treasures, a small church where candles flickered like stars, a street where musicians played as if the world was their stage. Each moment added another thread to the bond forming between them. Adeel could not ignore it. The warmth in her smile, the comfort in her presence, the strange certainty that though his time here was limited, this connection was limitless. But that thought was bittersweet. He knew he was only here for a short stay, a fleeting visitor in a country that was not his own. And yet, what he felt with Sophia was not fleeting at all. It was deep, real, and alive in a way he hadn't believed possible anymore. As they walked together one evening, the city glowing softly around them, Adeel realized something. Greece had given him beauty, yes. It had given him peace, yes. But more than that, it had given him Sophia. And she, without knowing, was teaching him that sometimes the most powerful journeys are not about the places we see, but the people who change us along the way. Chapter 3. A Love That Stays. The days in Greece passed more quickly than Adeel had imagined. Each morning, he woke up to the soft sound of church bells in the distance, the aroma of fresh bread drifting from the nearby bakery, and the warmth of the sun painting golden hues across the narrow streets. What had begun as a simple trip to escape routine had transformed into something far deeper, something that now tied his heart to this place. Sophia had become a part of his days, effortlessly blending into his experiences. Whether it was walking along the old cobblestone paths, sitting at a small cafe where the music of the bouzouki filled the air, or standing silently together at the shore watching the sea, Adeel realized that these moments were no longer just about Greece. They were about her. The laughter they shared, the stories they exchanged, and the way her eyes lit up when she spoke about her homeland. All of it carved a special place in his heart. As his final days drew closer, an invisible heaviness settled within him. He found himself clinging to every moment, unwilling to let it slip away. Adeel noticed how the sound of her voice stayed with him even when she wasn't around, how the smallest gesture, her smile, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, felt etched into his memory. Somewhere between exploring the ruins of history and tasting the sweetness of baklava, he had fallen in love. Sophia seemed to feel it too, though neither of them dared to say it aloud. Instead, it showed in the silences they shared, in the way their eyes lingered a little longer, in the soft touch of her hand on his arm as they walked. They both knew time was their greatest enemy, ticking away mercilessly. On his second to last evening, they sat together by the sea. The waves rolled gently against the rocks, the moonlight spilling silver across the water. Sophia leaned her head lightly against his shoulder, and Adeel closed his eyes, wishing he could freeze this moment forever. Words felt unnecessary. Everything they wanted to say was already there in the quiet closeness between them. But the final day could not be postponed. As the morning light filled his room, Adeel felt a knot in his chest. He met Sophia at the train station where he would begin his journey back. She was waiting for him, her eyes already shimmering with unspoken emotion. For a long time, they stood there without words, because anything they said would never be enough. Finally, Sophia whispered, "You will take Greece with you, Adeel. Because Greece is not just this land, it's also me." Her voice trembled, but her smile remained, brave and gentle. Adeel swallowed hard, fighting the ache in his throat. "And you will stay with me, Sophia, in every memory, in every corner of my heart." When he hugged her for the last time, it was both beautiful and painful. The kind of goodbye that doesn't end with distance, but lives on in the soul. Her scent, her warmth, and the sound of her soft laughter seemed to wrap around him one last time before he stepped away. On the train, as the countryside rushed past, Adeel stared out the window, his reflection blurring with the view outside. He knew he was leaving, but he also knew he wasn't really saying goodbye. Some loves are not meant to last forever in presence, but they last in memories. Some stories don't end. They live within us, shaping who we are. Back home, life continued, but Greece never left him. Whenever he saw the sea, he remembered the moonlight on the waves. Whenever he heard laughter, he remembered Sophia's smile. And in the quiet of the night, he would close his eyes and find himself walking once more on those cobblestone streets, hand in hand with the woman who had given him a love that stayed. because sometimes love isn't measured by time. Sometimes it is not about forever. Sometimes it is about the moments that live eternally in the heart.